Right now, somewhere in the world, a person is sitting on the edge of their bed feeling dizzy. The room is tilting. One hand feels heavy, almost asleep. And in their head, a quiet voice is saying the most dangerous 5 words in all of medicine. It'll probably pass in a minute. That person is making a bet. They are betting their brain that nothing serious is happening. And here is the fact that should stop you cold. According to stroke specialists who study this every day, the average person who is having a stroke waits hours before getting help. Not minutes, hours. They wait because the early signs feel small. They wait because they don't want to overreact. They wait because deep down they believe the body fixes itself. And in the case of sudden dizziness and sudden weakness, that belief is the single most expensive mistake a human being can make. I want to be direct with you, because this topic does not allow for soft edges. Sudden dizziness and sudden weakness are not always serious. Most of the time they are not. But sometimes they are a fire alarm. And the cruel trick is that the alarm and a false alarm can feel almost identical in the first few minutes. So today I am going to teach you how the experts tell them apart. I am going to show you exactly what is happening inside your body when these symptoms hit. And I am going to give you a clear set of actions that could save your life or the life of someone next to you. Here is the core message, and I am going to repeat it in different ways throughout, because repetition is how this sticks. When dizziness or weakness comes on suddenly, for no clear reason, your job is not to figure it out yourself. Your job is to act fast and let the right people figure it out. Speed is the medicine. I will explain why that is true in detail in just a moment. But first, the promise. Stay with me, because later in this I am going to teach you a 30-second self-check that doctors use. A check so simple you can do it sitting in a chair. I am going to tell you the one thing you should never do while waiting for help, the thing most people get wrong. And I am going to reveal the kind of dizziness that almost everyone ignores, but that neurologists treat as one of the most urgent warning signs there is. Hold those in your mind. We are getting there. Let's start with what dizziness actually is, because the word hides two very different things. When people say dizzy, they usually mean one of two feelings. The first is lightheadedness, that floaty, faint, about to pass out feeling, like the blood has drained from your head. The second is vertigo, where the world itself seems to spin or tilt, like you just stepped off a merry-go-round. These two feelings come from different places in the body, and knowing which one you have is the first clue. Lightheadedness is usually about blood flow. Your brain is a hungry organ. It is roughly 2% of your body weight, but it demands about 20% of your blood supply every second of every day. It has almost no reserve. It cannot store fuel the way a muscle can. So the moment blood flow drops even a little, the brain complains, and that complaint feels like lightheadedness. Stand up too fast and the blood pools in your legs. For a second before your heart catches up. That brief drop is why you see stars. This is incredibly common and usually harmless. Dehydration does it. Skipping a meal does it. Certain blood pressure medications do it. Vertigo is usually about the inner ear. Deep inside your ear are tiny canals filled with fluid and lined with sensors, and this system is your built-in balance computer. It tells your brain which way is up. When it glitches, the world spins. The most common cause is something called BPPV, where tiny crystals in the inner ear come loose and float into the wrong canal. It is harmless, it is treatable, and it is responsible for a huge share of the spinning dizziness people experience. An inner ear infection can do the same. So far, so reassuring. Most dizziness is plumbing or inner ear, but now I need to tell you about the third source, and this is the one that matters most. Sometimes dizziness does not come from the blood or the ear. Sometimes it comes from the brain itself, and that changes everything. Here is what is happening when it comes from the brain. Your brain is fed by a network of arteries, and there is a system at the back of your head, near the base of the skull, called the posterior circulation. It feeds the parts of your brain that handle balance, coordination, vision, and basic body control. When one of those arteries gets blocked or starts to bleed, the Very first sign is often dizziness. Not a dramatic collapse, just dizziness, sometimes with a wave of nausea, sometimes with the feeling that you cannot quite walk straight. People feel it, they sit down, they wait, and the clock is running. This is the kind of dizziness I promised I would reveal, and I want to slow down on it. A stroke at the back of the brain can look almost exactly like a bad inner ear day. The person feels off balance, they feel queasy. Room moves. And because it feels familiar, because it feels like something they have felt before after a long flight or a hangover, they dismiss it. Neurologists have a grim phrase for these. They call them the strokes that get sent home. Studies of emergency rooms have found that dizziness caused by a stroke is one of the most commonly missed diagnoses, precisely because it hides behind such an ordinary feeling. So I want you to mark this. Sudden, severe dizziness with trouble walking, especially in someone over 50 or someone with high blood pressure, is not a wait-and-see symptom. It is a get-checked-now symptom. Now let's talk about weakness, because weakness is even more telling than dizziness, and the pattern of it is the giveaway. A stroke is, at its simplest, a brain attack. The word stroke covers two situations. The common one, about 8 out of 10 cases, is when a clot blocks an artery and chokes off blood to part of the brain. That is called an ischemic stroke. The less common one is when an artery bursts and bleeds into the brain. That is a hemorrhagic stroke. Both are emergencies. Both starve or crush brain tissue. And here is the detail that makes time so brutal. When brain cells lose their blood supply, they do not last long. The figure researchers often cite is that during a typical large stroke, the brain loses around 1.9 million neurons every single minute. That treatment is delayed. Read that again. Almost 2 million brain cells a minute. That is why specialists have a saying that I want burned into your memory. Time is brain. Every minute you wait, you lose a piece of yourself that you do not get back. This is the why behind the core message. This is why your job is to act fast and not to diagnose. You cannot afford the time it takes to talk yourself out of it. Now, the weakness. Because the brain is wired so that the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, and the left side controls the right, a stroke almost always hits one side. That is the signature. Not tired all over weakness. Not both legs feeling heavy after a long day. One side. One arm that drifts down when you try to hold it up. One side of the face that droops. One leg that suddenly will not cooperate. If weakness shows up on one side of the body and arrives suddenly, treat it as a stroke until a hospital proves otherwise. I will say that again because it is the whole game. Sudden, one side. Those two words together are an emergency. This is where the most famous tool in stroke care comes in, and I want to teach it to you properly. Because it is the thing that lets an ordinary person catch a stroke in seconds. It is spelled fast, and each letter is a check. I am going to walk you through it slowly now, and later I will show you how to run the whole thing in about 30 seconds. F is for face. Ask the person to smile. Look at whether one side of the mouth droops or stays still while the other side lifts. A lopsided smile is a red flag. A is for arms. Ask them to raise both arms straight out in front of them and hold. Watch for one arm sinking or drifting downward on its own. That drift is the brain failing to power one side. S is for speech. Ask them to say a simple sentence. Listen for slurring, for words coming out jumbled, or for the person struggling to find words they normally know without thinking. T is for time. And this is the letter people underestimate. Time means two things. It means time to call emergency services immediately. And it means note the time the symptoms started. Because the doctors will need that number more than almost anything else you can give them. I will explain why that exact time is so powerful in the next part. Keep fast in your head. We are going to build on it. Because while fast catches the classic strokes, there are warning signs it can miss. And those are the ones I want to arm you with next. I am talking about the sudden symptoms that do not fit the Smile and Arms test but are just as serious. A sudden, blinding headache unlike any you have had before. sudden loss of vision or double vision in one or both eyes, sudden confusion, and that sudden floor-tilting dizziness, with loss of balance that we already talked about. Any one of these, arriving out of nowhere, belongs in the same emergency category. So here is where we are. You now know that dizziness comes in 3 flavors, and that the brain flavor is the dangerous one. You know that sudden one-sided weakness is a brain attack until proven otherwise. You know the fast check and the extra warning signs. Fast can miss. And you know the reason none of this can wait. Time is brain, almost 2 million cells a minute. In the next part, I am going to show you exactly what to do, step by step, the moment any of this happens. I am going to give you that 30-second self-check I promised. I am going to tell you the single most dangerous thing people do while waiting for help, the well-meaning mistake that makes everything worse. And I am going to walk through the situations where dizziness and weakness are genuinely nothing to worry about, so you are not living in fear, plus the simple daily habits that lower your risk in the first place. Stay with me. Let me start this part with a story because numbers tell you what to do, but stories tell you why it matters. A man in his 60s is making coffee one morning. He notices the mug feels strange in his right hand, like he is wearing a thick glove. He shakes the hand out. The feeling fades a little. He pours the coffee. Then he tries to tell his wife about it, and the words come out soft and mushy, like his mouth is full. It lasts maybe 2 minutes. Then it clears. He feels fine, so he does what most people do. He decides it was nothing, and he goes about his day. What that man just had is called a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, and people call it a mini-stroke. A clot briefly blocked an artery and then cleared on its own before it did permanent damage. Here is the part nobody tells you. A TIA is not a lucky escape. It is a warning shot. It is your brain telling you that the conditions for a major stroke are present right now. A meaningful share of people who have a TIA go on to have a full stroke soon after, and a chunk of those happen within the next couple of days. The clot that cleared this time tells you that somewhere in your system, clots are forming. The next one may not clear, so when symptoms come and then go, that is not the all clear. That is the loudest alarm of all, and it is the one almost everyone ignores. If you have symptoms that vanish on their own, you still go in. You go in because of the next one, not the last one. The man with the coffee mug, in the version of the story where it ends well, is the one who tells his wife to call anyway, even though he feels fine, because feeling fine is exactly the trap. Now let me give you the 30-second self-check I promised. You can do this sitting down, and you can do it for yourself or for someone next to you. Run it the moment something feels off. Look in a mirror or look at the person and smile big. Is the smile even on both sides? Then raise both arms straight out and hold for 10 seconds. Does one drift down? Then say a sentence out loud, something with a few words in it. Does it come out clean or slurred and jumbled? Then check your body. Is there sudden numbness or weakness on one side, one arm, one leg, one side of the face? And notice the dizziness. Is it the floaty kind, or is it the spinning, can't walk straight kind that came out of nowhere? That is the whole check. Smile, arms, speech, one side type of dizziness. 30 seconds. If even one of those is wrong, you are done checking. You are calling for help. You do not need to score it. You do not need to be sure. You do not need a second opinion from the person in the room with you. One wrong answer is enough. So let's talk about exactly what to do in order, because in a real moment people freeze, and a clear list beats panic every time. Step 1. Call emergency services immediately, not later. Not after you lie down for 10 minutes to see if it passes. Immediately. Dial the emergency number for your country. And here is something people get wrong out of politeness or pride. Do not phone your doctor's office and wait on hold. And do not phone a relative to ask their opinion first. Those minutes are brain cells. Call the emergency line, because the ambulance crew can begin treatment on the way and can alert the hospital so the right team is waiting. There is another reason to take the ambulance and not the car. Crews can route you to a hospital that is set up for strokes, which is not always the nearest one, and they radio ahead. So the scans and the team are ready the second you arrive, instead of an hour later in a waiting room. Step 2. Note the time. Write down or remember the exact moment the symptoms started or the last time the person was seen completely normal. This is the most valuable piece of information you can hand a doctor, and here is why. The main clot-busting treatment for the common type of stroke only works inside a specific window of a few hours from when symptoms began. There is also a procedure where specialists physically thread a tiny device up into the brain and pull the clot out, and that too lives inside a time window. If the doctors know the start time, they can act. If nobody knows when it started, they often cannot risk those treatments at all, because giving the clot buster too late can cause dangerous bleeding. So that one number, the start time, can decide which treatments are even on the table. This is also why the question the hospital asks again and again is, when was this person last completely normal? If the symptoms appeared after a nap, they have to count from before the nap, because that is the last moment you know the brain was fine. When you wrote off the symptom for an hour because it felt mild, you may have spent the window. That is the whole reason I keep hammering speed. Step 3. Now the single most dangerous mistake, the one I promised to reveal. When someone feels weak or dizzy, the natural, loving instinct of everyone around them is to say, "Here, lie down. Rest, have something to eat, you'll feel better." Do not do this. Do not have the person lie flat and go to sleep to shake it off. And do not give them food or drink or pills. Here is the reasoning. A stroke can affect swallowing, and a person who cannot swallow properly can choke or breathe food into their lungs. Aspirin is a folk remedy people reach for, but if the stroke is the bleeding type, aspirin thins the blood and makes the bleed worse, and you cannot tell which type it is at home. Only a brain scan can tell the two apart, which is exactly why this is a hospital decision and not a kitchen one. So the rule is simple. Do not feed, do not medicate, do not put them to bed. Keep them sitting up, comfortable, and as calm as you can, and wait for the crew. If they are unconscious but breathing, the recovery position on their side keeps the airway clear. But if you are unsure, the dispatcher on the phone will talk you through it. That is what they are there for. Stay on the line. Step 4. Gather quick information while you wait if someone else can. A list of the person's medications, especially any blood thinners. Known conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or an irregular heartbeat. Any allergies. Handing this to the crew saves them time, and time is the thing we are fighting for. If you can do it without delay, unlock the door, so the crew gets in fast and put any pets away. Small things, but they shave off seconds, and we are counting in seconds now. Let me repeat the core of all this in plain words, because this is the spine of the whole message. Sudden dizziness or weakness, especially on one side, is a maybe stroke. With a maybe stroke, you do not investigate, you do not wait, you do not feed and rest. You call, you note the time, you keep them upright, and you let the professionals decide. Acting fast on a false alarm costs you an embarrassing afternoon. Acting slow on a real one costs you your brain. That trade is not close. Now, I told you I would not leave you living in fear, and I meant it. So let's talk about when dizziness and weakness are genuinely fine, because most of the time they are. The danger sign is the word sudden and the word one-sided. When those are absent, the picture usually changes. If you stand up quickly and feel a brief head rush that clears in a few seconds, that is almost always just blood pressure catching up, and it is extremely common. If you have been out in the heat, or you have not eaten or had water, lightheadedness is your body asking for fuel, not a brain attack. If the room spins when you roll over in bed or tip your head back, and it settles after a minute, that pattern points toward the harmless inner ear crystal problem, BPPV, which a doctor can actually fix in the office with a simple repositioning maneuver. If you feel weak and shaky all over, on both sides, with hunger and sweating, that can be low blood sugar, especially in someone with diabetes. General tiredness, weakness in both legs after a hard day, feeling wiped out when you are sick. The cold, these are your body being a body. The thing that separates ordinary from emergency is the suddenness, the one-sidedness, and the company it keeps. The slurred speech, the drooping face, the blinding headache. Learn that line, and you can stop fearing every normal dizzy spell while staying sharp for the one that counts. And since the best emergency is the one that never happens, let me leave you with the prevention side. Because a great deal of stroke risk is in your hands. The biggest single risk factor is high blood pressure, and it earns its nickname, the silent killer, because it does its damage for years without a symptom. So know your numbers. Get your blood pressure checked, and if it runs high, work with a doctor to bring it down, because lowering it is one of the most powerful things a person can do to protect their brain. If you have an irregular heartbeat, the kind called atrial fibrillation, take it seriously, because it lets clots form in the heart that can travel to the brain, and it is very treatable once it is found. Beyond that, the advice is the unglamorous stuff that actually works. Do not smoke, because smoking damages and narrows the arteries that feed your brain. Move your body most days. Even a daily walk counts. Eat in a way that is heavy on vegetables, fruit, whole grains, and fish, and lighter on salt and processed food, because that pattern keeps both your blood pressure and your arteries healthier. Keep diabetes well controlled. Drink alcohol moderately if at all. None of this is exotic. All of it adds up over years to a brain that is far less likely to ever sound the alarm we have been talking about. So let me bring it all the way back to that person on the edge of the bed, the one feeling dizzy with a heavy hand, hearing that voice say it'll probably pass. You are not that person anymore. You know now that the brain has no fuel reserve, that a stroke kills cells by the million each minute, that the dangerous dizziness hides behind the ordinary kind, that one-sided is the signature, that symptoms which vanish are a warning and not a reprieve, and that the most loving thing you can do for someone in that moment is not to fetch them a glass of water, but to pick up the phone. Smile, arms, speech, one side the type of dizziness. Call, note the time, keep them upright, do not feed them. That is the whole thing. The popular belief is that the body sorts itself out if you give it a minute. With your heart, with your gut, that is often true. With your brain, it is the most dangerous idea there is. So if it comes on suddenly, and especially if it picks a side, do not give it a minute. Give it a phone call. Because every minute is brain, and the minute you save might be the rest of your life.